Here we go. I hope I was loud enough so no one could hear that. Welcome back to another episode of the Kronos Group Podcast. Yours truly with Jerry, Matt, and Steve. We've got another week, another episode, and a lot of exciting topics. For this first one, we're going to dive into some sports news. Steve, I'm going to hand it off to you because this is something that you brought up prior to us going live on the podcast.
Yeah, it's about Bill Belichick not getting on the first round ballot, I guess it's called. You know, first round, I guess that's even prestige. It's a big deal to hit the Hall of Fame regardless for pro football we're speaking of. And obviously, you know, even more so to be able to just kind of puff your chest out and know you are a first round, got in on the first round, first ballot. That's what it is, first ballot out. And the fact that Bill Belichick didn't, even though he said about every coaching record, Super Bowl record, win record. They were showing stats with like Shula, Chuck Noll, and Tom Landry, and he equaled all their Super Bowls and outdid them in all the playoff wins combined. Well, not combined on the playoff wins, but definitely in the Super Bowls, but he outdistanced the nearest. I think Landry had like 22 playoff wins and Belichick had 31. But just what's the idea with somebody like that? Of course, anybody's paid attention. I'm sure this isn't news to anybody else as far as being unknown, but the idea that athletes from all different kinds, I've seen LeBron chime in, I've seen Tiger Woods chime in, I've seen NASCAR drivers chime in, people from all walks, not even just the commentator, other athletes of different, sports chiming in, like, how can that not happen if that's supposed to be such a prestigious thing? And just what's behind the scenes as far as, is there little vendettas, different things that people hold as far as grudges, and that it would actually bleed into something that should be a lot more objective. And it appears there is to some degree. I know one of the guys that they've brought out, I can't think of his name. I think it's Jerry. I can't think of his name. It starts with a P. Yeah, the 83-year-old guy. But it just turns out that he was with the Bills and the Colts organizations when Belichick was kind of spanking him. Bill Polian, that's what it is. He was with the organizations, especially with the Bills being in the same division there when Patriots were kind of laying the wood to them. So you have to kind of wonder if there was some bad blood there. But it shouldn't appear here. Let them stand on the merit. The idea, some people brought up the old Spygate thing, or the Deflategate type thing. But then Jimmy Johnson's talking about, we all knew about it. We all thought about it. He just actually tried it. And there's some others that tried it that weren't successful. He just flat out, Jimmy Johnson came out and just said they tried it. He just happened to be successful. And of course, then they rewrite the rules. And it's like everything, you'll push the limits of what you can get away with until they tell you can. I know in basketball, that's one thing, like when Aaron would play down low and he knew to do this, my son, Aaron, and you push the limit because every referee is going to be a little different. And you want to find out what the limits are. So what you do is you push until you get that first foul. And you find out how much can I get away with this game as far as, putting a body on somebody or, coming down defensively on somebody. And then that kind of sets the line. Okay, that's where it's at. And then, you can play to that level up to that line for those particular set of refs. So just, kind of broaching the subject of, what's really behind this? I mean, how can somebody that seems, whether you like him or not, whether you like the Pats or not, or anything's irrelevant, standing on the body of work that he's done, through his NFL career, how does something like this happen?
Yeah, I think also there's a lot of politics involved, sadly. I think that's one of the things that I've looked at and kind of researched, and a lot of people, they might use that as an excuse, but he definitely was someone who was in not the actual Republican Democratic politics involved, but the politics within the sport, within how you got away with certain things, how it was shown in different lights, how his image was kind of tarnished after the whole Deflate and Spygate and all that stuff. And I think that's something that definitely probably played in factor for him getting that first ballot and being able to even be in the running for that, because it goes against their legacy traditions, which isn't right, especially if he's an incredible coach and has led all of those victories and gone through some crazy times throughout the sport. He's a legend, regardless of how you see it from a political view within the sport itself and the NFL organization.
So I was just looking at his stats. So let's just talk about this, how ridiculous it is, and I'll tell you why I think it is. The dude is the second winningest coach in NFL history behind Don Shula, who has, I don't know, a dozen more wins, period. Don Shula had 347. He's in the Hall of Fame. Bill Belichick had 333. He's not in the Hall of Fame. George Hollis had 324 wins. He's in the Hall of Fame. Andy Reid has 307, but he's still active. No one else is anywhere close to them. So no Landrys or Knowles or Browns or Lambeau or any of them. They're all in the Hall of Fame. None of them are anywhere close. Belichick has 6 championships. Don Shula had 2. Chuck Noll had 4. Landry has 2. Reid has 3. So, I mean, the dude just won more games, period, right? I mean, and across multiple eras because he was in charge for 20 years. Playoff success, Belichick, 31 total NFL record. Don Shula, 2 at 19. Reid is in the mid-20s, but Reid is still playing. Belichick won championships with a defensive team, a run-heavy offense, a spread concept across 2 decades under multiple rule changes and against multiple generations of coaches. Compare him to coaches who are in the Hall. George Hollis has fewer wins, fewer championships, less playoff success, Hall of Fame. Tom Landry, fewer wins, fewer titles, Hall of Fame. Chuck Noll with the Steelers, fewer wins, fewer overall wins, fewer playoff wins. He's in the Hall of Fame. So I think it comes down to, if he is not in the Hall of Fame, then wins don't matter, championships don't matter, longevity doesn't matter, dominance doesn't matter. It's just that, it's that plain and simple. So why have a Hall of Fame at all? There are people in the Hall of Fame. I have said this, here's my Hall of Fame test. If my wife or my daughter has never heard of you, you should not be in the Hall of Fame. So whatever your Hall of Fame is in baseball, basketball, and football in particular, if my wife has never heard of you, she's not a sports fan, but she's aware of sports and she likes sports. It doesn't like she hates sports, but she's not a sports fan. So if she doesn't know who you are, if she's not heard your name, that doesn't mean just because she's heard your name, you get into the Hall of Fame, but a minimum has to be that she has heard of you in basketball, baseball, or football. And if she's not, you should not be in. And the Hall of Fame it's a joke for this reason. Like the Baseball Hall of Fame is a joke. And it's made a joke because the writers, the reporters get to say who gets in. In this case, in the NFL case, it's 49. But I'll never forget, there was one guy who did not vote Nolan Ryan in first round in Major League Baseball. Now, Nolan Ryan, by any estimation, just like Bill Belichick, only in an active career, years played, forever, right? 24 seasons, I think it was. Number of pitches ever, an actual pitch thrown by far, 5,500 and however many strikeouts he had, well into his 40s. I think he had more one-hitters than he had no-hitters. I think he had 7 perfect games. I mean, this guy, I don't know his career. He's just crazy, right? I mean, if anybody was going to get in the Hall of Fame, the Hall of Fame was literally created for this dude. And some a-hole did not vote for him when he was eligible, probably in the early 90s, if memory serves me. But, so it is what reporters are, is they are jaded a-holes who wish they could have been athletes, who wish they could have played sports. They're sports adjacent. They're the equivalent of the people who follow around and go to all of the concerts for insert their favorite person, right? I've seen Taylor Swift in 13 different cities, and we all sit back and go, you're some sort of retard, but okay, right? And I know every song, and what is it, the guy, he died, he's got the Margaritaville, those guys.
Buffett.
Jimmy Buffett.
Yeah, Jimmy Buffett. And the other guys is like the Deads, the
Grateful Deads. Deadheads.
Yeah, right, the Deadheads. And it's just like, that's that, they wish they could play music. They wish they had some sort of talent. They attach themselves to these people, and then they live vicariously through them. And then they get to this point where they get a Hall of Fame vote, and all of a sudden they think there's something extraordinary. They think they're special. They have some sort of insight into sport, having never played a sport. I think the Hall of Fame guys should vote for who goes into the Hall of Fame. I think the Hall of Fame should be significantly harder to get into than it is. The Hall of Fame should be more about keeping people out. It should not be a story when people don't get into the Hall of Fame, because it should keep more people out than it lets in. Far too many people have been let into the Hall of Fame. Far too many people have been let into the Hall of Fame by the old timers, particularly in the Major League Baseball side. I mean, Dale Murphy was a kid. I grew up in Portland, Oregon. He went to Wilson High School when I was a kid. When I was super little, I remember him throwing a baseball up in the air from underneath the goalposts on the football field at Wilson and hitting it through the goalposts on the other end, just time after time. Throw a ball in the air, through the goalpost, 100 yards, right? The dude's got, I think he's a 2 or 3 time MVP playing for the worst Atlanta Braves team. Some of the worst baseball ever played in Major League Baseball was during the 70s and 80s Atlanta Braves. And that dude's not in the Hall of Fame. And there's big pushes to get him through. And maybe this was his last chance with the retired, Hall of Fame voting inductees. And they vote all these guys in who can't make it during the regular season. They were phenomenal, or during the regular process, I should say. They're phenomenal people, phenomenal athletes. They had careers that almost every single other athlete could only imagine and is envious of. And yet still, I don't know that my wife has ever heard the name Dale Murphy. And so he should not be, by that criteria, he should not be in the Hall of Fame. You need to have guys like Pete Rose. Of course she's heard of Pete Rose. And Ty Cobb, right? It's always, well, Jerry, what do you do? She's not going to know who everybody is, and you can't keep track. Everybody knows who Tiger Woods is. Everybody knows who Muhammad Ali is. Everybody knows who LeBron James is, Magic Johnson is, right? Go to Nolan Ryan is, right? She's going to know who Mike Schmidt is, third baseman for the Phillies, one of the best ever to do it. I've heard of Mike Schmidt before. She wouldn't be able to tell me he played for the Phillies, but she's going to know who Mike Schmidt is. She knows who Ty Cobb is, things of that nature. I mean, that should be our criteria starting point. I'm not saying that maybe she's never heard of Mel Ott or, some of these more obscure players that play, but she's going to know who DiMaggio is and all these guys. That should be, okay, that's the start. And then right below that. So if that's our start, and then you bring somebody in that's up here, if your starting point is somebody my wife has heard of, which is going to be rare, and then you bring a dude that's better than all of them, and you don't vote him in, the system is the problem, not the Hall of Fame. And I'll say that the system for the Hall of Fames, regardless of the sport, primarily basketball, football, and baseball, has been broken for a long time, because there are people in the Hall of Fame who should not be in the Hall of Fame. There will be basketball players that have played in the last 15 years. Let's say Steph Curry and LeBron, maybe a few other ones that should not. Steph Curry and LeBron. Let's say that's our starting point, Steph Curry and LeBron. So you got to be at least Steph Curry and LeBron level. You got to be up there to have played at that level. Does that mean that Clay gets in, that played with Steph Curry and was so productive for all those years, right? KD, does he get in? I don't know. Is he Steph Curry level? Has he done the things that Steph has done, led his team to multiple championships and done all of those things, stayed with the same team? I think that's a big one as an example. But no, just talk about letting guys like Chris Bosh back in the early aughts that played with that Miami team, that he was a Hall of Famer, for God's sake, right? So these are the kind of things, like Dwayne Wade. In what world is Dwayne Wade a Hall of Famer? Now, I hate Dwayne Wade, but that is an aside. Dwayne Wade was a fantastic player, but is he Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? No, that's right. So we're starting at Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then we come off of that even slightly. So how close is Dwayne Wade, who can't even spell his name correctly, that close to being Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? That's the problem with the Hall of Fames, and the idiots that they let vote him in, again, are the sycophantic, living vicariously through, wish they were them in high school, what I could have been, but I'm not. So I went and became a sports reporter, and Nolan Ryan, the greatest pitcher arguably of all time, can suck it because he's not getting my vote as a first go round. This one's much worse because there was 9 of them that didn't vote homeboy in. 9 out of 50, I think it was. I think it takes 49 votes. 9 out of 50 didn't vote. How's the dude short 9? What kind of world are we living in? How objective can a reporter be? What trust can we have in the institution of sports reporting if these morons can't vote what is the greatest coach of all time by any number into the Hall of Fame first round? Tells you the system's broken because it's ran by a bunch of nerds.
Yeah, I like the idea that it should be a standard where I like that. It should be something that you're keeping people out more than you're letting them in. Because I'll see years, I follow sports, and I'll see years where people, I mean, they're vaguely, I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess I remember them. But then it starts to become almost like a participation, good old boy network maybe, but it's really not because, I don't know if you said it, Jerry, just now or not, but yeah, you were saying about the people in the Hall of Fame should vote the other Hall of Famers in. The one that knows the standard, the ones that know what it takes to play at the level they played at should be the ones that vote the other ones in that'll be in there. But definitely it seems like there was an axe to grind in this situation by far, to your point, when there are so many that didn't vote. Like, how can you not look at everything or let that have a conversation? So what is the criteria then for Hall of Fame? I heard some of it was one of the things I saw floated was that there were a couple of them or two or three guys that were like right at the end of getting in or not. They hadn't got in by now. And they felt bad for them and they wanted to give them their shot. And it bumped like somebody like Bill out of his spot. But to your point, you're talking about the greatest coach of all time in football by every metric. It's not like you're talking about somebody that was a really good, solid coach, that maybe even won a Super Bowl or two. That you were bumping out like, okay, I could see them getting in maybe the next year. Memory fails me right now of somebody that would have done it, but maybe pulled off a couple Super Bowls, and have done it. But, not to the degree. Who was the Giants coach? He got 2 Super Bowls with Eli. Who was that? Memories. Yeah. So, but does he deserve to get in? I can't even remember his name, to your point exactly.
Right.
I can't even remember it. He was a great coach, great career, just like a lot of players. And they let so many of them in that it just dilutes the idea of what the prestige of what it should mean.
You have to think that he was such a dick to him in all of his interviews, right? Which he was a dick for all of those years, that this is the nerd's way of getting back at the jock that they hate, right? There literally is no other reason that can possibly be given that makes any sense at all, other than you got a bunch of guys that are like, he never gave an interview. This dude, he always glared at us. He would never answer a question. He had nothing but contempt for the reporters. Now, this is our chance to get back at the greatest coach. And this is how dumb they are. We're going to get back. How are they going to get back? By showing the world how retarded they are. Mm-hmm. It just shows you how stupid they are.
So true.
They show the world how stupid they are by getting him back. Let me tell you I just looked up the last 10 NBA players inducted into the Hall of Fame, which so perfectly makes my point. Chauncey Billups. Chauncey Billups is a Hall of Fame basketball player. Now, Chauncey Billups was money. 5-time All-Star, Finals MVP, had a long NBA career. Apparently has a little problem with gambling.
Yeah, just a little thing.
An issue. But Chauncey Billups. Carmelo Anthony.
The Mellow.
Is an All-Star or is a Hall of Famer. Dwight Howard, Hall of Famer. Vince Carter. Michael Cooper. Michael Cooper, the third best player, probably the fourth best player. What I remember most about Michael Cooper in the 80s, Steve will remember this, Matt, you won't, is he would come off the bench. He wasn't even a starter. He would come off the bench. But he's a 5-time NBA champion. He was an elite defender, right? But he wasn't even the fourth best player on his team. Walter Davis was a Phoenix Suns legend. He played in Portland for a little while. But again, who ever heard of Walter Davis? No offense, Walter Davis. I heard of Walter Davis, 6-time NBA All-Star. The boy he was money. He could play, but he's an All-Star? No, some dude, Dick Barnett. I don't even know who that is. Played back in his era 1,000 years ago. Dwayne Wade, 3-time NBA champion, Finals MVP, perennial All-Star. Dwayne Wade is a Hall of Famer. Manu Ginobili. Man, again, arguably the third best player on his team, Manu Ginobili, is in the Hall of Fame. And last but not least, Vince Carter, who never won anything. Now, Vince Carter was a player. Vince Carter had once in a generation, maybe 2 generation skills. Homeboy could jump out of the gym, had all kind of game. I just happened to be watching TikTok videos. You know how it is. You see one. If you stay on it too long, You're going to see 14 of them. So I was up watching 14 videos of Vince Carter doing all kinds of crazy things. Absolutely. Was my man a winner? Not really. Did he ever do anything? No. He was impressive, but he's no Hall of Famer, for the love of God. Not when you compare him to all of the greats. I mean, Magic Johnson is a Hall of Famer. Michael Cooper, the 4th or 5th best player on the team that had Magic Johnson, is in the Hall of Fame now too.
Sitting right next to him.
Thing's broken. It's broken.
Yeah. So the ones that are up this year, I was looking at Drew Brees, Larry Fitzgerald, Willie Anderson, Torrey Holt, Luke, I can't remember his name, linebacker, Coakley, Frank Gore, Carolina, Frank Gore, Adam Vinatieri, kicker, Eli Manning, Jason Witten, Terrell Suggs, Jahari Evans, Reggie Wayne, Lomas Brown, and Kevin Williams.
The whole team?
Yeah. No, that's the ones that up. I believe what they do is they pick 5 of them. But I'm still thinking, who of those guys deserves to be in more than the all-time winning coach of all time? Who's going to get bumped? They'll pick 5 of those. They said Eli's probably out because it's his first year in, and I get that. I mean, he's got 2 Super Bowls. I've got none, so he's got me. But it was just being at the right place at the right time, for that, because his stats, nothing ever lit it up. And he'll probably get in at some point because he won 2 Super Bowls. But some of these others, I mean, good receivers, good things. But to have them, bump Belichick for any of these, if you put a list of things to the average person, who do you really know on there? And then if you just put the stats up, like, well, this should be a no-brainer. Somebody else is just going to have to miss out. And if these other guys didn't get in, I don't know how long you can be on the ballot before you're out. They said there was a couple of them. What is it? 5 years, 10 years that you can keep going.
Something like that.
So if you haven't got it for that long, there's a reason. That's the people you are trying to keep out, not disregarding the phenomenal careers they had or how well they played at the time they played, and how they contributed to their team. So that's the whole thing. It's got to be that old axe to grind with somebody. And to your point, exactly, they wish they could have played, wish they could have done this. And they carry those personal vendettas from the news meetings into this. To your point, I heard it floated around that it got mentioned. Of course, everybody's denying it now, and you see it going each way. But that the idea that Belichick, because of Spygate, should serve a 1-year penalty, kind of like your 2-minute penalty in hockey. In their regard, it's a 1-year penalty for what he did. The idea I guess the phrase came out. Now everybody's saying it's not, but it didn't just get invented because it came from somebody within that's not admitting it. But the idea was floated around that you maybe serve a 1-year penalty for that. And so it bumps you from a first ballot.
For what?
The Spygate, thing. Yeah. So but that actually came up that was floated around from within. And now they're saying, no, it didn't. Maybe somebody mentioned it in there, in the room when they're doing the voting. But I mean, holy cow. I mean, this isn't, what was his name? Shoeless Joe Jackson or Pete Rose type stuff.
Right. And there's a tie-in, I think, to society more at large. Mm-hmm. And that is that these guys all get in a room. This is how the Hall of Fame's decided. They all get in a room. So there's, 50 of them in the room or however many there is. And they sit there and they have this conversation and they go back and forth and they're talking about sports because these people think they're smart. Like so many people in the world, right? This was me at 28 years old when I had to get out of my own way and figure out that I wasn't as smart as I thought I was. I didn't know as many things as I thought I knew. I had to go out and figure out how the real world worked. And the only way I was going to do that is I had to stop doing the thing I was doing, which was talking sports, playing sports, watching sports, drinking while watching sports and talking sports, eating, drinking, watching, playing sports, so that I could eat, watch, talk, play, and argue about sports. Because sports is the great equalizer. Sports is when you are whatever the lowest job you consider the lowest job to be, which I would never say that because all jobs, you should have pride in all jobs you do. But whatever the lowest job that you think you are, McDonald's, you're working at McDonald's, which I did as 16 years old and it changed my life. You're working at McDonald's and you are absolutely at the bottom rung, making the least amount of money. What do you have the same as everyone else around you? An opinion about sports. And so sports holds so many people back because they don't want to move out of that comfort zone because they get to talk about sports and I get to have an opinion. And my opinion is not necessarily based on statistics
or
right?
logic.
We like to argue about statistics, but we could argue that X is better than Y, even though Y has better numbers than X does, right? It's in an infinite. So no matter how stupid you are, no matter how ignorant you are, no matter how closed-minded you are, no matter what it is, we can all get along because we can argue vociferously, loudly, energetically about sports. And so now take the cream of the crop of half-retarded sports reporters, and in they're going to go, and they're all in that room. Think how powerful they feel. Think, finally, this is our time. Spygate. It makes all the sense in the world to me, Steve. I don't care if it's true or not. It's subconsciously, we're going to get him back for Spygate. We're going to get him back for 20 years of how he treated us in all of those interviews. We don't think somebody should get into the Hall of Fame first. They have nothing to do with any of these things. They have no buy-in to it. They have no athletic ability whatsoever. They have no capability to do any of the things that they don't have the brain to coach the way that these guys do. But they know that they should have been in a cover 2 in 2007 against that game in Tampa Bay, and he didn't play that 2, and so the linebackers were spread too thin, and they were able to run up the middle, and I knew that's what he should have done, and so I'm not letting him in the Hall of Fame, because why didn't he know that? You guys know as well as I do that is exactly what happened. That's exactly what's going on, because
might as well replace
cover 2 against the freaking Tampa Bay Buccaneers in some game in 2008.
Yeah. And you're so Pete Carroll's not getting in because last night I got home late. I got me a snack, sat down in the living room. There wasn't anything on, but they had Super Bowl highlights going through like for an hour, catches the top parts of a Super Bowl game, just the plays. And it was the one where the Patriots played the Seahawks. And in that fourth quarter, they were down 24-20 or 28-24. And they're on the 1 yard line, Seahawks. And the quarterback, I think it's Russell Wilson, tries to do a pass at the 1 yard line. And the defensive back for the Patriots intercepted, bumped him. They hit shoulders, and he just happened to get the ball at the 1 yard line. And while he's throwing the ball, and I remember thinking this, watch the Super Bowl, you got Marshawn Lynch, just a beast of a man. You need to go a second down. Give him 3 tries to get in the end zone. So Pete Carroll, forever judged on that play for whoever, or if his OC calling that play, and to your point, because of that one time and that one thing, and they know that he should have ran the ball instead of trying to throw a pass.
Right. As I've said many times, there is few connections between success, sports success, and entrepreneurial success or business success. What happens on a field, the way that it manifests itself, the way that we see it every day, the way that you see it play out, much less today because the sports are all so soft and weak and almost unwatchable by any kind of standard. In particular, when I grew up and Steve grew up in the 80s and the 90s, that's when sports were sports. They've been watered down because there's so much money. I get it from a business perspective. I understand it. But still, this ferocity, so it's such a joke. You see today's players jump up like they're going to do anything, and they're just looking out the sides of their heads, waiting for somebody to come get involved, right? I'm going to walk to him, but not too quick, but fast enough that the players can get here to intercept me. So I don't have to really do anything, because they're not going to really do anything, because they're going to go spend their $25 million that they get every year, and they're not interested in anything that's going on in the court anyway. But there's no connection. That competitive spirit that LeBron has, right, has nothing to do. It will not play out at all in the real world because of how it manifests on the sports, on the field of sport, on the basketball court, on the football field. Because if you, like LeBron, flop to try to get ahead in the real world, you ain't going to get anywhere. If you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to make it, and your program is, I know what I'm going to do. When it comes my way and it's not quite happening right, I'm going to flop. Well, good luck with that program. We'll see how that goes, right? Or I'm going to stick with this only so long There might be upside, but I'm not going to be here. I'm going to flip somewhere else. Or I'm going to overreact like a coach does. And I'm going to throw a chair and I'm going to yell and scream. I go on about this all the time. That's not the real world. There's no value in that. There's no emotion in money. Everybody looks at sports people and go, that's how I'm going to make money, by being an overly emotional, narcissistic child that's been pampered and spoiled his or her entire lives, mostly men, their entire lives. They have no concept of what the real world looks like. They behave this way. And then all of us go, oh, when we're 16 years old, we're going to emulate that. That's how you get ahead. And that's how you have all these children at bars on a Friday night watching a game, arguing over something so ridiculous so they can get back to mopping the floors on Monday morning, rather than spending real time on things that are going to have value, which is like being unemotional, not having any emotion at all, so you can make good decisions, trying to learn, getting out of your way, shutting up and listening so that you can be a success. Sports teaches us the opposite of that, the entertainment of sports, not the playing of sports. I'm a big advocate for playing sports, but the entertainment of sports teaches us something that's just not reality. And adjacent to that are the sucker fixes, the moray eels that come up and attach themselves to the bottom of the sharks that are known as the reporters.
I'm gonna use that as a reference point for now on. It's like, oh, those are those little sucker eels.
Yeah. But it's almost like the victim mentality, manifested itself into sports. Everybody, we can't let anybody get hurt, but it's like we can't let them be a victim of something, because it's just crazy to watch, NFL in the 70s. Linebackers knew, receivers knew you didn't want to crawl across the middle. I remember Chris Collingwood told us about first pass he ran, and he was a big, tall receiver. He's like 6'6", 6'7", pretty good sized guy. Ran across the middle, and I think they were playing the Raiders, or maybe it was the Rams. It was the Rams, and Jack Lambert lit him up and told him, said, "Don't come across the middle anymore." And that's back when you could just get speared, and it was a perfectly legal play. And so you really had to think about it. I mean, I remember a phrase, when you were a receiver, they'd hear the footsteps when you might drop the ball because you think that D-back's coming. I don't think that's a phrase they use much anymore because they're so protected,
right?
That it's like, unless they're turning around running, they're considered a helpless player.
Now, think about
in that line. But that was a phrase to me back when I know that feeling. Hearing that linebacker coming, if you're running a slant, you wouldn't run slants. That was you. I remember, seeing stories about receivers getting pissed at the quarterback or something, calling a play that made them go across the middle with somebody like a Jack Lambert in the middle, headhunting on you. It's like, dude, let me run a fade route or something to the outside, not that.
You made me think of something there, Steve. This another lesson that sports teaches us that it should not. A lesson we take away from sports as young people, young men in particular, that we should not. It gets me every time I watch an NFL game, which I used to watch. I was the biggest sports fan in the world, and now they've kind of run me out. But I've watched enough. It still happens. The NFL wide receiver drops a touchdown catch that he should catch, that he would catch 100 times out of, but he doesn't catch it, right? Or he drops, or he fumbles one that he shouldn't, or they do something that they shouldn't. They hold their head down and they walk off and they get yelled at and all of that, but not much happens. And then you turn right around, and that same guy then in the second, third, fourth quarter catches a touchdown, and he acts like nothing, like he's never done anything wrong. They jump up and down and scream and shout, right, and point and do all of the things that they do to show everybody how great they are. But when they turtled up because they lost, they dropped the ball, or they didn't catch it, or they fumbled it, or they were on a run, or they didn't misdirect, they didn't go where they were supposed to, whatever it was, right, that he failed at, to drop it in the end zone. They don't even want the camera on them, right? You ever notice how diminutive they are, and how they just kind of want to shuffle off and they go sit down, and damn, they just say. But when they do this great thing, it's as if that never happened. And that is not how the world works. That is not how the entrepreneurship world works. You get high, you stay low. You get low, you stay low, or medium, I should say. You just don't go high, because you can't learn up here what to avoid down here. And when you go down here, right? You don't want to go down there because it's hard to learn how to get back up here. You got to stay even keeled so that you can learn your lessons up and down. Trust me, going up, I've been as high as you can go. I lost more money when I was making the most money ever than I ever did when I was losing the most money. But there's times where you're losing the most money, you feel so down about it that it's tough to bring yourself back up. So that staying right in the middle, and the example for me, I always think about that when I see those wide receivers that act like they do no wrong when they catch a touchdown. Missing are the 7 drops you had, 2 fumbles, and maybe a missed tackle on an interception you caused that you didn't make.
Exactly.
Yeah. I hear the other part of this is from the crowd or from the group of guys that are hanging out at the bar, watching the game, giving their commentary, thinking, hey, he shouldn't have done that. I would have called this. I would have done that. It sounds like at that point, as a direct correlation into the entrepreneurship world, if you are surrounded by people that are like the guys at that bar and you're listening to them, good luck actually doing successful and being successful in entrepreneurship, because that's not the advice nor the opinions that you should be surrounding yourself with to begin with. Similar to your point, Jerry, earlier, you used to eat, live, breathe sports. And where did that get you? Mm-hmm. A great opinion. That's about it. Mm-hmm. And so if you are in entrepreneurship, you want to build a business, even if you're not starting a business yet, but you're like, I think this is a great idea. Good luck going past the idea state if you are around people like that every other night of the week. It's a separation, and that's part of how I feel the Hall of Fame is now. The Hall of Fame is just a hangout fest, whereas it should be the elite that are separated from the rest. And it, like you said, there's no sense of like amazing accomplishment in the Hall of Fame now as it did 25 years ago. It's like everyone at this bar can now have a say on who should be there. No, because exactly to that point, that's not how the world works. That's not how business works. That's not how entrepreneurship works. If you are around that, it's not going to go far, because the ones that do go far have separated themselves.
They need to have an almost Hall of Fame.
Yes.
And maybe we can put it in like, I don't know.
Almost famous. Kind of like
some small town in Iowa or something, right? Just it's like this almost Hall of Fame. That's what we need to have. And each sport doesn't need their own, right? You just have everything together.
Yeah.
And it could be like in one of those old supermarkets that they put a flea market into because the Albertsons couldn't make
a liquidation warehouse.
Yeah. You just do it there. And then you have the almost, and almost is in quotes in big letters on the sign, and it's almost, and then in smaller letters, Hall of Fame. And you could put all them people in there, and we can go look at their socks that they wore for, whatever highlight game they did. And, it's almost.
Yeah. Or you could put them in, just not even take the time to spend the resources on that, and let them be like a spirit store that just shows up for about 2 months out of the year. You get to go see it, and it shows around in different places.
Right.
And really, when you think about it, the way it gets so watered down, it's like the Hall of Fame should be first, second, third. Ribbons, trophies. Yeah. And almost could be 4th through 9th that they even exist. I had a conversation with somebody the other day about the fact that I remember the first time I saw like a 4th or 5th place, and it just didn't even make sense. Who cares at that point? Why would you as a player or a person care by the time I got the 4th or 5th? And I think that does reflect a lot. Somebody's like, they proudly, got their 8th place trophy at something like.
It's because they haven't listened to the advice Ricky Boggy gave. If you ain't first, you're last.
And I'd like to, just for the podcast, we need to have a public service announcement that by no means did Steve's hurtful words and commentary, if that impacted anybody in a negative way, if that triggered you, if that made you feel like you need to go off to a safe space to recover from those horrible words that Steve said, in no way is that representative of the Kronos Group podcast at large. And go ahead and just send your comments to Steve directly, and he'll be dealt with appropriately. Because fifth is okay. 6th is okay, Steve. Sometimes These people need to feel responsible. 8th place is legit. That's all I'm going to. That's my take on it. That's my opinion.
Yeah,
All right.
it's a rough one, but
Exonerated.
But to your point, Jerry, with the football and the sports relation to business, there is this consistent pattern that's happening now within entrepreneurship that everyone sees it as a success instantly or quickly, especially from social media, because it's the instant gratification. But that also means that when someone's actually out there trying to build something, now all of social media has an opinion. They can throw that opinion in a comment. They can go behind their keyboard and just be like, you are looking so dumb. This isn't going to work. All this. We're in the same boat within entrepreneurship, but it's a totally different field because it's not you having to just fight against them in like a sport. It's mostly, as an entrepreneur, you against what's happening up in here. And I know, Jerry, you have a very gifted ability to just silence this and make something happen. Whereas a lot of entrepreneurs don't have that ability, and they start psyching themselves out. They question themselves, not in a way of like they should make a good or a bad decision. You don't know. You just got to make a decision. But to that point, they won't ever go there. And the idea for this business will stay as an idea. And they'll kick it around to all their buddies at the bar on a Friday night and be like, dude, I got this great idea. And it's like, okay, cool. Everyone has an opinions. Doesn't mean it's actually going to be something. And you can post about it on social media. Doesn't mean it's actually going to be a profitable business. Just because you have a quick plan doesn't mean it's actually going to make money.
I agree. And like sports, you get that from reps, right? Mm-hmm. You're born with the constitution to deal with some BS, or you go have reps and you learn to deal with it. And so the tie into sports there, again, my thing is never about the athlete, without a doubt, but how does the athlete get good? To your point, Matt, they shoot 10,000 shots. They throw the ball 10,000 times. They do all of these things that make them better, and they do that by failing, right? Because that's how you learn. I can't hit it this way. I got to hit it that way, right? Baseball is a perfect example of that. So, yeah, my abilities that I have because I've learned them the hard way. Yeah, I've earned them. And you go out and you realize what you can survive and how to even out your feelings and to make sure that you don't let them impact you negatively. To do that, though, you have to get rid of all of that training you've had watching sports for all of those years.
Mm-hmm.
Boom,
yeah,
boys.
it's interesting.
Go ahead, Steve-O.
Well, so it's interesting. I just thought I'd throw in AI about the correlation with business. And it's talking about how, one of the things they might thought, well, Belichick couldn't have done it without having Brady there. And it's the idea, do you have that one, kind of like, is your revenue dependent on, just one client or one superstar employee, for your success? The other thing that I thought was interesting, they sometimes they're saying, of course, the merit of the body of work he's done is, irrefutable. But if they were looking at his final years at the Patriots, once Brady left, they weren't too good. And then he goes to UNC this year. College ball didn't do too good. And a business correlation could be that as far as, are you innovating and trying to win today's market based on last year's playbook? How I could tie into that as far as that. By no means does that take away about the ridiculous, situation we see here, which is definitely based on, not seeing it based on his merit, but actually, obviously, a lot of feeling, and feelings will kill you, and it causes all kinds of problems. Take feelings over fact. What's the facts? But you let the feelings get into it, and I'm sure there's a correlation in business too. What are the facts we're dealing with? Are the feelings going to sink me because it just doesn't look good right now in the business? You're going to let that beat you down, to your point, like, oh, I'm getting out of here. Kind of like you talk about the NBA people. Well, then look, I'm doing good here. Let me see if I can put together something better over there, and try to create something new. And a business doesn't just allow you to do that.
Right. Agreed.
I was going to say, Jerry, probably some of your best decisions you've ever made in business were led with emotion, right?
Yeah. I had a conversation on a podcast I went on a couple of days ago, and it was about artists, and the conversation was about, well, artists love their work. I said, that's why starving artists is a term. That's why everyone knows that term, and that has entered our vernacular. It is because it's exactly what it sounds like. And the reason why so many artists starve, and that's, again, a reason why so many business owners struggle at times, is because they get too defensive. They can't see the forest for the trees. They can't see their business outside of it. And that's why I say, bring me into any business, I'm probably going to save you 5 or 10 points of margin, simply because you can't see it. And if you came into my business, it'd be the same way. But artists, I don't care if I build a widget and sell the widget. It's a widget. But an artist creates something. And so the artist has trouble not understanding why Steve doesn't think this thing that he created is the greatest thing ever. But the reality is, it's not whether or not you think it's great, it's whether or not the market thinks it's great. And then in terms of how you price it, it's what's the value that the market puts on this thing. And so for so many artists, they don't change with the way that they do things. But this is true also of traditional businesses. But it's really exemplified in the artist community because they're doing truly what they love. And as I always say, doing what you love makes doing something difficult like being an entrepreneur that much harder. I've never made that was the question he asked me. He said, you said on your bio, you've never made $1 doing anything that you love. And that's 100% true. I haven't. So I have not been encumbered by the process of trying to only do one thing, that thing that I love. For a myriad of reasons, it lowers your ability to make money, taking advantage of other opportunities, but it zeroes you in a way that you're not looking around, because I'm so good at drawing a picture of a flower that this is how I'm going to make my living. Well, somebody says, well, you didn't sell any, so maybe instead of drawing it this way, you should draw it this way. And you're like, what? Are you crazy? You have no idea what you're talking about. This is how flowers get done. It's like, wait a second, but you didn't sell any. No, I know, but that's my art. That's my expression. That's my emotion. That's my pain. That's my life. You don't understand. I went to France to learn how to one-hand this thing backwards.
I stood in a lily field.
Right. That's my passion.
That's my passion. And you go, I know. But if you just turned it this way slightly and made it look like that, and maybe if you up here and down there and turned it around, it might be a little more entertaining. Screw all those people. If they don't like my art, they don't understand it. Now, I can't talk to you anymore because I got to shift at McDonald's. That's what we're talking about here. So letting emotion get in the way of business is never a good thing. Not that there aren't successful artists, but it's the same as successful artists are the same as a successful Shopify store. There's 75 billion artists. There's a few that do very well. Pointing to the few as proof of concept is a fool's errand. It's ridiculous. There is no bigger business failures. I'm using the word business. I'm going to, for half a second, I'm going to qualify a Shopify store or a reseller as a business, and then I'm going to take it back at the end of this comment. But for right now, we're going to say that's a business. That's the biggest failing business in the history of all businesses. I think it's 99.5% of them fail. Yes, there are people who do it well, right? They are few and far between, the same as for every billion artists there are that starve, there's one that makes money. That's not an exact number. Now, I'm taking back that I said Shopify stores and resellers and drop shippers and all that are real businesses, because they are not. But for purposes of that illustration, I think that worked perfectly.
Yeah, if you're an artist and you really want to make a lot of money on your paintings, you got to die.
Yeah, and even that's no guarantee. Here's what I would say. If you're a starving artist and you want to finally make it big, save up some money and go buy a car wash. That's a better way of putting it.
Yeah.
Go buy a gas station.
Yeah,
Yep.
I was listening to a podcast earlier, and there was a guy that was a big investor in successful investment, and he was saying a question was asked to him about how people make money off of crypto and trading and options and all this stuff, and they can make money. There's very few that do, but they can make good money. If it's sexy, it's not going to pan out in the long term. It's the showstopper. It's the grab your attention. Boring is what builds wealth. And if it's boring, it's most likely the route you want to run down. If it's everyone's doing it, everyone's talking about it, it's all posted over social media, good luck for it to actually pan out and be successful amongst all the other people just like you that see that as a win, and you're like, oh, I'm going to make money on Forex trading. Look at this. He walked me through it, and he made all this money. I can set up an account tonight. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to become a Forex trader.
You just described the problem with social media. Right there. The society and social media has ruined entrepreneurship from that perspective, because it's lost what it means to be hard, and it makes it look easy. And again, if you're not driving a Lamborghini and working less than 4 hours a week, you're a fool. And that's just nonsensical. But we have whole generations now over the last 15 years that have been raised on easy money. It's got to be easy. How easy can it be? It's got to be simple. There's nothing to it. I saw XYZ. And again, for every one person that's XYZ that makes it big and has a big Instagram following, there are a billion failures. We just don't ever see the failures. They never make it up. And it doesn't feel good. That thing that you want to do, that easy money that you're going to have. I'm going to be driving a Bentley here pretty soon too and have all the hot chicks. It doesn't really work when you see that the 79 million other people that tried it are, again, washing dishes at McDonald's. Meanwhile, the one guy who made it out's got all the cash. You're like, yeah, I'm going to be that dude. It's not fun to go look at the McDonald's guy. You don't want to hear the McDonald's guy's story about how he flamed out and lost everything. You don't want to hear that story. You want to look at the pretty story. This is why I always say the reality for business is, if you want to get ahead, worry about what you're not good at. Worry about what's going wrong. Worry about what you're not doing. Don't worry about the good stuff. The good stuff takes care of itself. Doesn't mean that you don't research and figure out how to do more good stuff. What I'm saying is we want to avoid that hard stuff. I don't want to have the conversation with dude working at McDonald's who failed in the business and lost everything trying to do the exact same thing I want to do. I'm going to go talk to the winner. This is not a direct contravention to the point I make. If you want to go somewhere, find somebody who's done what you've done and go do it. Right? So you're free to go talk to that dude that has a Shopify store that's never been seen before and no one's ever done it. I promise you, what he's pitching you to try to get you to buy his easy money-making system is not the program that he did. That guy worked his ass off. He risked everything. It's morning, noon, and night. He reached out for months, years, inordinate amounts of time. But there's no value in him telling you this, because you're not going to buy his program if his money-making system in the Shopify store is 18-hour a day, a billion phone calls, 7,000 emails every single day, reaching out, house risk, on and on, production issues. I'm up wrapping things until 4 a.m. every day. He's not going to tell you that because you're not going to buy it. So the reality is, for those ones that do make it, which is no guarantee that just because you put in that time, it's going to be very different than the reality they show in the Instagram world. And that's really become a problem. So to your point, Matt, that's where that mindset comes from, I think.
Yeah, it's something that I've been able to really see on a day in, day out basis, especially now doing a lot more social media work for the Kronos Group and putting clips together, putting interviews together, looking through all the podcast perspective, and then listening to other podcasts, listening to what people are doing, seeing what works, what doesn't. It's all about attention and consistency of attention. It's shock and awe. And if you want to have a successful following, if your goal is on social media to just get followers, don't do entrepreneurship, education, or anything of that nature. Do incredible wild stunts. Be like a cast member on the show Jackass, because that's what's going to get views. That's what's going to get people to watch you. Are you trying to do something beyond just social media? If you're building a business, well, then that's the exact opposite approach, which means 99% of the population will not consume it because all they're looking for is shock and awe. But if you have a business and you're targeting a certain audience of consumers to buy your product or to sell your service or to be in that world, you need to speak like they speak and listen to and hear and communicate around. And some of the best podcasts I've listened to were not the top 10 podcasts on Spotify. Now, granted, they have a place and they've done well in entertainment and politics and whatever they're talking about. But some of the best interviews I've ever heard have not been the most popular interviews, but how they ask questions, because I was looking at it from a different angle. And so if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, you're starting to think and you're trying to be successful and you're putting in the work and you're being consistent, and it's boring, hard, grudge work that no one wants to post on social media because no one's going to engage with it, because no one wants to be doing that. They want to get the attention. They want to get all the fame, but that's all instant gratification. It's not the way of entrepreneurship, which is day in, day out, show up at 5, not leave until 8, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. And then next day, right back at it. No one's going to watch that. Think about a live stream. If someone was sitting in an office room, Jeff Bezos, if he recorded his whole come up building Amazon, I don't think he would have been super famous. He's super famous now because of what he's built. But throughout all that time, no one was going to actually watch that. They watch streamers. They watch people online that are gamers because they're shock and awe. Whatever happened in that lobby just now, or whatever that player once said, and now he's rebuttaling, and it's all just a bunch of just opinions and people trying to just gain attention. They're not actually watching the game. They're not actually watching like who's winning and who's losing. Now they're just watching for entertainment. And if that's how you want to grow on social media as an entrepreneur, good luck, because it's not going to work out in your business, because that's not how business works. Mm-hmm. And so I know going into this, if we get 1 million followers, amazing. I'm gonna be, my mind's gonna be blown. But I'm not shooting for that metric. I'm shooting for the 10 people that do see this, that do listen, and are in that same state of mind, are in those kind of conversations, are in those kind of scenarios, and they take value from that and build their business and do something better within their health, within their business, within their just overall life. That's a win. That's way better than just a follower. That's way better than just 100 comments. It's those kind of impacts, because then they come full circle with an email or with a message that said, hey, you said this at this one point, and 5 years down the road, they write back and they said, this changed the trajectory of my life. This changed the trajectory of my business, because I didn't even think about that, compared to having 1 million views on a viral post.
I like it.
Yeah, they something you said earlier, I'll touch on it just gets lost in all of it, because like I said, it's just a highlight reel of the best stuff, good stuff on a lot of business stuff. And there is one Amazon business that is actually does pretty well, and you can do pretty well in that. It's selling the idea of building an Amazon business. Yeah, those do very well.
True.
Those do very well. The actual business. But you hit on something earlier that I think that, and I know even in the sales job that I do, is the consistency. You know, and it leaves out the consistency, and you've got to be consistent, and you got to be consistent in the most boring, at times boring, numb-minding things. We'd all like to do something exciting and exhilarating. You know, the most excitement and exhilaration you could get, depending on how you look at it, is when shit hits the fan in business. Oh yeah, your emotions are up, your adrenaline's up, you know, everything's revving, but it's usually in those situations. But that's one thing, even like in sales, the most boring thing to do is sit there and just dial and dial and dial. But you know what the highest performing sales reps do? They dial and dial and dial. They just do that boring, mundane stuff. Now, if you look at a lot of sales training and a lot of sales guru things, they just like every call is just this great prospect that's a great close. And they really leave out, you know, 2-3 hours between those, 4 hours between those calls you get it, that it was just a no or a no. Think about it. Not interested. No. And you've got to have that persistence that I think a lot of people, especially in this generation, I know it seems like we're beaten up on it, but they've been so subjected to things like instant gratification. Well, this isn't working. Well, it's been 2 days now, and I haven't made money yet, or doing, you know, whatever. Or, you know, I've gotten to this business, but nobody knows I exist anymore. I'm not out there. I'm not out. No, because you're behind the scenes just making things happen. And that's the only way to be successful, especially in a small business. To your point, Matt, the up and coming stories, but even we started the topic, the podcast off with the athletes. You look at you hear about Jordan and especially like Kobe, the hours upon hours in a gym by themselves. Nobody's around. There's no fans, no cheering, no stats being kept. Just the mind numbing at times. It had to be just repetitive, the practice, the skills, the work you have to do to be successful. And I think that's why a lot of them get into it. And when they start hitting that, where's all the excitement? Where's all the fun? Where's all the exhilaration? Because everything's a real, everything's a snapshot of, just those highlights. And I think that's where a lot of deception comes in and people get delusioned on that. Whereas you come into a group like this, you get around real people that solve real problems in the peer-to-peer groups that help you understand what it's really like. And somebody that gets what kind of day has it been? Oh, I get it. I've been there too. That really helps you understand that. And even next week, February 5th, 7 p.m. CST Central, we'll have a webinar. Come jump in. Come have a conversation. Get a behind the scenes look. If you're a business owner, small business owner, working in a business, or even if you've had an idea about building a business, hey, I want to start a business. I think it's all this. Come to the webinar, listen, get the curtain pulled back to see what it's really like back there as you make the decision to move forward on this mythical journey called entrepreneurship, and see what's really behind the scenes so you can really do it. Not discouraging you from starting the journey, not discouraging you to do it, but get a real boots on the ground feel for what it means to be an entrepreneur, what it's like to start, so you can have your head in the right space for actually building something, growing something that means something to you. Jerry, you hit a point earlier where you're talking about, haven't made money doing everything. That's a passion. Most of my passions in my life cost me money. So find something that you make money at. Find something that you can build and grow, and then find out about what it really becomes to actually be passionate about something. Everybody thinks they're born with a passion. You'll be surprised, at the passions you can develop when all of a sudden you start running a business. It didn't seem sexy, didn't seem exciting, but then it starts spitting off money. You get the help, you get it built, you get the support, the guidance, and it starts making money, and how much you all of a sudden fall in love with that business. And then it can go fund.
Once you make money, how it changes that's 100%. Even if it's not life-changing money, you just made money doing something, all of a sudden you're like, well, climbing down into this hole and digging this sewage out, it's not such a bad deal. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I think of like Facebook Marketplace, when you have this old junk thing is sitting over there. It's like, man, I got to get rid of this, sell it. As soon as you go meet that person, they give you cash. Man, that was the greatest piece of junk I ever had, because you feel good. Oh, I'm glad it's gone. But boy, I feel good about that junk now because I just made money on it.
Right.
And speaking to that as well, with the workshop next week, again, 7 p.m., we'll link it in our Instagram. We'll link it on our socials. We'll link it on the website so you can register. Literally, it's a 1-hour conversation with Jerry, Q&A, live. I call it the workshop because we are actually going through real conversations, real questions about businesses, real question about just entrepreneurship in general. And if you're someone that's interested in entrepreneurship, or you're getting into it, or you have a great idea and you want to know what's next, if the peer-to-peer groups are not for you, because we're hitting $1 million to $25 million business owners year over year that are making that for those cohorts, we have a school community. It's free. And eventually the same thing that we're talking about here is shared out on that platform as well. And there's videos, there's courses. We'll put podcast episodes up there. A lot of great resources. And if I would have had these resources, honestly, Jerry, in college, I don't think I would have gone to college. But at the time, it was just coming around where it was digital, and most social media was just more of like attention driven, cool, the aesthetic of Instagram. It was more of a popular thing than it was an actual tool and educational resource. Now, all of the things I've learned over the last 10 years going into my career have been through YouTube videos. No college professor just stand up there and told me how this actual business works, or how I actually make money, or how I go out and make money doing freelance work. All of that was through YouTube and learning from other people who have gone and done those things and have been successful. And I wanted to listen from them compared to someone who's never done it in a college room tell me how it actually is. when
Right.
in reality, it ain't even close.
I love that. And way to pimp, Steve-O, next week's call, next week's workshop. That's fantastically done. Maddie, way to pimp the school to people who may not have ever heard of that. SKOOL, School Community. Go check it out. We're just getting it started. This is all brand new for us, but get in early so you can see what it is that we have to offer. But slowly but surely, we're putting this thing together.
Awesome.
Yep. Everybody can watch it happen right before their eyes.
That's right. All right.
Well, remember, opportunities are everywhere. I was going to throw it to Steve.
Oh,
I was going to say the first part, and then be like,
I want to see if Steve, we're going to have a progression, Maddie, over time, and you're going to put it all together. Steve's first time where he couldn't even remember what it was, right? You know, that look back video of
Steve,
me where I was trying to do I was just tripping over my tongue. And then we're going to say, now it's this one today. And Steve's going to be like, who is that idiot? So
yeah, it's going to be, it's one of those things going to be like this. That first one's going to be, you throw it to me and I'm like, opportunities are everywhere. Yeah.
No, that was better than the first time you did it, right?
the first one was like this.
What?
Wait, did you
I
say
was trying
something?
to find it on the sheet.
All right, Steve-O.
All right. Well, we appreciate you joining us today. Remember, opportunities are everywhere. You got to go get them.